Very, very warm greetings to you as you join us on today's episode of Tax Matters. My name is Olumuyiwa Matuloko. The Ember months are here. Common belief is that the Ember months are dangerous months, but that will not be our portion. The Ember months, September, October, November, December, will bring us joy and prosperity. Everywhere we go, God will go with us. We will not experience accident or violent death, but we have a role to play. Very, very big goal. Do not phone while you drive. People are not heeding the call of the FRSC. People still make calls on the roads, at road junctions, when they are turning, even when they are reversing. Do not make calls on your GSM while driving. Protect your life, protect the lives of other road users. Do not drink when you drive, and do not overspeed. On today's episode of Tax Matters, we're going to look at what they call agency arrangement in taxation, whereby ministries, departments and agencies, local governments, and other such bodies help in tax collection. We'll also be playing you the concluding part of the interview with the gentleman from the FIRS on transfer pricing. If you are ready, take a seat and let the show begin. Welcome once again. The program is Tax Matters, and the only language you speak on this program is the language of taxation. Tax authorities all over the world do not do the work of assessing, collecting, and accounting for taxes alone. They have associates, helpers if you like, who help them in doing their jobs. For example, retail outlets collect value-added tax or general sales tax, as they call them, in other jurisdictions from their patrons. Hotels, restaurants, and many others, all be with close monitoring by the appropriate authorities. In Nigeria, ministries, departments, and agencies, as well as local governments, play this role. So much so that early in the year 2013, the Federal Revenue Service established what it calls the Government Business Tax Department, with offices in all the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja. What does the Government Business Tax Department of the FIRS do?
It's born out of the segmentation efforts of the SAF, recognizing the taxpayers in their respective sectors. We realize that the government business is one big business that needed special focus. Unlike in the past, when a lot of liabilities will remain unpaid, they are promptly being attended to now. They are always there at the end of every month, ensuring that they remit the taxes due to government so that we avoid the building up of arrears. And they are also using the opportunity to clear the backlog of arrears, because we are talking to them, we are asking them to reconcile, see what had existed before their time.
What we are doing as a department is to focus on peculiar ways we can get things better done with MDAs. You see, the old arrangements where payments of MDAs were lumped with companies and individuals was not getting us the best, because these are peculiar sectors and each one needs like a customized initiative towards getting the best. For example, yes, you can't be emphasizing on penalties, on going to court for ministry. How do we, like my CD said earlier, how do we say, okay, Ministry of Finance, you are not responding well, we are coming to seal you up, we are taking you to court. It's laughable, even though in theory it is there. So we need to develop responses that are different and that can do things better.
On Wednesday, the 21st of August 2013, the Government Business Tax Department of the FIRS put together a sensitization workshop on the activities of the department for ministries, departments and agencies in the North Central Zone and the Federal Capital Territory. It was a highly stimulating session with 3 technical papers followed by a robust question and answer session. Mr. S.S. Ogumbeson, at that time the coordinating director overseeing the activities of the Government Business Tax Department, made some remarks which succinctly conveyed the raison d'etre for the workshop.
Let me explain and emphasize here. The treatment for VAT is not the same as for withholding taxes. So if you say MDAs are required to deduct, yes, they will deduct withholding taxes and payee from incomes. With respect to withholding taxes, yes, it's your duty to deduct from the contract fee of contractors who are the taxpayers. And the reason why you are deducting is we do not know whether that company that is doing business with you will ultimately report that income in full to the FRS. So the moment you deduct and you remit to us, you've given us information on him. And you are also helping us holding back a certain portion of his income. When at the end of the day, the man files return with Inland Revenue, if the tax he has paid is more than what you have deducted is more than what you should pay, we'll give him his refund. But you have given us a link to that company. That is your duty.
That is one leg of the deal. The other leg is with regard to personal income tax.
With respect to payee, that again is agency responsibility to help deduct tax in accordance with the law on the income and by your employees. So that is where the deduction responsibility begins and ends. The treatment for VAT is different. You are the consumer, and value-added tax is consumer-oriented. It is the consumer who pays it, not the contractor. The contractor will pay VAT on his own consumptions. When he makes purchases, he will pay. And the law says the consumer is also an agent. Which, as far as VAT is concerned, he is an agent. He is not the one that should bear the burden of VAT. So whatever he has paid up front, he has a right to collect it back because he's not the target. It is the final consumer that will ultimately bear the brunt of value-added tax. So when he's working for you, assuming you ask him to supply vehicles, where he's purchasing the vehicles, he has paid VAT. He didn't come to you. He paid VAT from his own pocket. Yet, he's not the consumer. The final consumer is the MDA. When he now submits his invoice to you, he will reflect VAT. And we are now saying to you as agent, you should deduct that VAT that you should be paying. But then, if we take VAT from you, and we have also taken from the supplier, government has taken VAT twice. We have a duty to refund one. But we don't want you to do that adjustment. Let's do it ourselves. The MDA is the final consumer. He is the one to pay VAT.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, waiting be this.
The deduction now for withholding tax.
Withholding guinea. Look, if you not pay me my correct money today, hey, Munu get me half for.
But madam, should be your company paying income tax.
Yes, that one I enough load for me to carry. Why you won't come add join them again?
You see, withholding tax now advance payment for income tax. So when you do some kind job like contract, we go remove small from them when we won't pay you.
I don't go contract am up. I bet tell me another.
No. We must pay the money to FIRS within 30 days, and they will give us withholding tax credit note to take show say you don't pay part of your income tax in advance.
So
now to help make the money where you go pay at the end of the year small.
So this withholding tax something, it be like part payment of one.
Exactly, madam.
I beg you, give me my check.
Remember, come collect your credit note.
Withholding tax now for we own good. FIRS, it pays to pay your tax.
And from the Oga Kwata, the acting executive chairman of the FIRS.
I was talking to the organizer that I have not seen the banks because MDAs remit money to banks. Some of the banks fail to remit for one reason or the other. Lack of schedule, lack of team, and so on. That's one. You talk of the responsibility of the MDAs. What is the responsibility of Federal Revenue Service? Sometimes I receive complaints from contractors that they have suffered withholding tax deduction. They have gone to our offices. They cannot get credit notes. So what are we doing to address that? Then MDAs too, you have mentioned it, that they should please not award contracts without TIN, because it's creating a lot of problem. You award the contract, you deduct, you remit to banks, but the bank cannot pass it to Inland Revenue because there is no TIN. Or you remit the money without schedule. You just send it envelope, say you have remitted, taxpayers will come back to you. Where is our credit note?
And to some other matters arising.
Sometimes the government says it embarks on direct labor. And this direct labor runs into millions. And at the same time, you find it difficult to deduct. When your staff come for staff audit, they discover these vouchers in millions, and they are jobs. 2, some contractors do insist that they pay taxes. They pay their own taxes. So, if you want to now deduct from the job you are doing given to them, if not for the explanation that the chairman gave, it's always difficult to tell them that, look, you must deduct VAT from the job he is doing. My issue is this: do we insist on deducting, then he reconciles with your office, as you have rightly said, or what do we do? I'm talking about the VAT, yes. Because the contractors will insist that they have been paying their own taxes. If you want to deduct from the job you are giving them, the rest are them.
When you call an outsider and say, go and repair this thing for us, that fellow is not a staff of the ministry. Once you engage an outsider, you may not have awarded a formal contract to him. You merely say, go to our account and collect 2 million and help us patch that road. That is contract. That is contract. It is a verbal contract, but it is a contract. You must deduct withholding taxes because that man is earning income. He must pay withholding taxes. You are the consumer of the service is rendering. You must add 5% VAT on that amount and to be paid by the MDA. It will be painful, but that is the law. But if you call the director PRS in the MDA, director, see, we need to do this service here and there. Go and collect some amount, as if you give him cash advance. Is a staff of your ministry. That could also be spent on direct labor. But you cannot deduct withholding taxes from him. He must come back and account for that money to you. Otherwise, you hold it against him. Now, because if the Inland Revenue says you must deduct withholding taxes, what is he going to do with that credit note? Is it to reduce his personal income tax? No. And you can also not use it. So withholding taxes does not arise. Now, for value-added tax, when it takes the 1 million from your chest and it goes to the market, where he's purchasing cement, they will charge VAT from him. I will not advise you to impose VAT on the amount you are giving to your staff because it's an internal thing. Now, let me tell you, where we are holding you back is if you award or you give an amount that is more than amount prescribed in the financial rules to an individual, we will report you to EFCC. The EFCC is going around now to hotels to find out if there's any agency that is releasing cash direct to the officers to come and deal with them. Because the rule now is that you must issue check direct to the hotels. So please, let's understand it. There's no direct labor. It's your coinage. You are the one defining direct labor the way you have explained it. Once you give money to somebody outside your organization to work for you, it is contract you are awarding. And that is the rule.
How we wish we could go on and on and on. But time, oh time. These concluding remarks from the Director of the Government Business Tax Department. Finally, what is your message to the MDAs?
Thank you very much. If you look at the theme of this our program today, we say partnering for development. They should really know that it is what you give that you get back, especially the states, the local governments. If you refuse to contribute, if you refuse to charge your contractors taxes they're supposed to pay, or you charge and you refuse to remit, you are making the federal account, the federation account, to become lean. And this is what we sit down later to say we want to distribute. I just want to charge them to cooperate with us, partner with us, so that we can get to the Nigeria of our dreams.
Now to the concluding part of our interview on transfer pricing, the first part of which came to you on the last episode. Mr. Bamidele, when are the regulations taking effect?
Thank you very much. The regulation took effect the day it was signed. That was August 2nd.
Who signed it?
The approval given by the minister, the coordinating minister of economy, and the honorable minister of finance.
Okay.
On the approval, then the chairman FIRS will sign.
Okay.
It was signed by the chairman FIRS.
So they have come into effect.
It came into effect. However, there are few things I need to explain to our taxpayers. One is that effective date is when it was signed. The taxpayers, we also know that the expertise required in transfer pricing, even though the concept is not new, but to Nigeria, nobody can say he is an expert on transfer pricing today, but everybody is developing. Explaining further on the effective date of the regulation. The regulation gave a leadway of minimum of 12 months for people to get prepared before they start submitting returns. And if you look at the regulation in one of the interpretations, it says for you to start rendering returns on this regulation, you start your documentation from the financial year commencing after the date the regulation was signed.
Okay.
Which by implication is that most companies that have the financial year end 31st December, their first documentation, we expect them to start work on the implementation by 1st of January 2013. And their first return on this transfer pricing will be done by June 2014. I would say if anybody has not started the documentation, it's 6 months late. 6 months late in the sense that if your financial year end is 31st December, you ought to have started 1st of January. Every transaction that you have with connected or related party ought to have documented it properly. Okay. And all the transfer pricing policies and other things that relating to transfer pricing as stated, the method and every other thing, you ought to have documented them that this is the way you are going. Because if by 31st December you start to adjust, that means you are already putting people on inquiry that we should not trust what you have done. Because if you have complied with the regulation, you ought to have documented it from the day you are doing the transaction.
Okay. Mr. Gbojumbola, advanced pricing arrangement, is that an agreement within an agreement?
Not exactly. When we talk about advanced pricing agreements, it is an avenue for us to avoid conflicts.
Okay.
And what happens is the taxpayer wants to go into a transaction with a related person. And then it comes to the tax authority and say, I want to do this transaction with a related person who is in this other country. It will give us the details of what those transactions, I mean, it will explain the basis of the transaction, what exactly the transaction, what they want to do, and now ask FIRS and say, before I do this transaction, can we all agree what will be the pricing? What method should we use? And we all sit down. The transaction has not been done.
Okay.
And then we sit down and we say, okay, we agree, let's do it this way, let's do it this way, let's do it this way. Once you have that agreement, it is binding on the Federal Revenue Service. It is binding on the taxpayer. So, and the transaction can happen within 3 years after the agreement had been made. And as long as the transaction actually followed what was said will happen, you can be sure that there will be no need for doing audit. There will be no reason for a disagreement between the tax authority and the taxpayer, because we have all agreed beforehand. And that is what, in other words, some people will call rulings, advanced rulings.
Okay. We are coasting home. On the part of the FIRS, I know that capacity is being built, even if I don't say has been built. Are you ready? Are you ready for the antics of the businessmen out there?
Yes, we are ready. And let me also put it straight that we also trust our taxpayers, that they will do the right thing.
Okay.
But if inadvertently things are not done properly, we have put structures, and we are continuing to put structure to ensure that we make relevant corrections. We are having a team of experts within the service. We are having people from various backgrounds, professional backgrounds. We are having the lawyers, we are having economists, we are having lawyers, we are having specialized people in engineering to look at some very complex transactions who already know them. We have geologists, we have people within who are going to form part of a team of experts to look at this. So if by error of omission or commission, somebody has failed to give the correct disclosure, then we have mechanism within the service to bring the true picture out.
Okay. Mr. Babile, your last word.
The word antics is a very strong one.
Okay.
Like just my colleague have said, we trust the taxpayers they are going to do
The right thing.
the right thing. It is only when they fail that we now say they are playing a prank. And it may not even be intentional at that time. But when you have corrected, and then that takes us away from two things, now brings it down to two things. There are intentional issues. When it becomes intentional issues, we know that it's going to a criminal issue. And there's another arm of Federal Revenue that handles criminality issues.
Okay.
And that is the investigation department. Okay. They are special and know how to deal with taxpayers in that category. But on those transfer pricing, like I said, all of us, yes, we are developing the the knowledge, and we believe that as the taxpayers are also developing, we are also developing. Okay. And FRS don't want to give room for gap that used to happen in the past, that the taxpayers are ahead of us. We want to be ahead of them, and as of today, I'm sure we don't have too many that are ahead of us, if there are any at all.
There you are. I have been the hard one here today. I've used words like antics, I've used words like pranks, and each time they say no. They look at the taxpayers as civil, as gentle, and as partners in progress. We think that the FRS should be commended for breeding this kind of gentlemen. Gentlemen, We thank you for coming on to the program.
Thank you.
We've enjoyed talking to you, and we know that our viewers are grateful. We thank you for watching. Let's do it again next week on this same station, same day of the week, and same time of the day.